Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I am here to talk about young adult books that are perfect for adult readers. This is going to be an interesting video because I have been on BookTube for a minute. I have been on BookTube now for, I don't know, like maybe 11, 12 years, something like that. It's been a while. So when I first started BookTube, I was very young. I was like 23, 24, and I read predominantly young adult books. That is how I started. The whole reason I started this channel is because I didn't have friends that talked about books. They thought it was weird, that I was a dork. So I'm like, I can find people online to talk about books, and I did. And my main thing that I read a lot of was young adult, particularly young adult fantasy slash dystopian, and a lot of young adult contemporary. And since then, I have obviously grown up. I am now 36. I know I'm old, and my tastes have changed vastly to the fact that I maybe read 5 young adult books in an entire year because I've grown. My interests are changed. You know, I don't connect with young adult books anymore. That's how things go. But today I thought, you know, let's do a video to talk about some of my favorite young adult books that I still think are great for adult readers. Now, these are all books I highly recommend and I would read again and again, even though I'm an adult reader. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? You read the adult genre and you're like, oh, I don't know about YA. These are some of my favorites that I think just translate well no matter what type of genre you like. I just really enjoy them immensely, so I would recommend them. And I've done a whole plethora of videos like this on my channel of like my favorite YA contemporaries, my favorite YA thrillers, my favorite YA fantasies. You get the gist. These books I'm talking about today I think just really are great for any genre of reader. If you read primarily young adult books, I think they're great. If you read primarily adult books, I still think they're great and that they're worth the read because they're just that good. You get the gist. So I have a stack. I have some fantasy, I have some dystopian, I have some contemporary. These just books I think are just great for adult readers. The whole reason of what sparked this video idea for me is because of the new release of the new Hunger Games book, which is coincidentally enough why I wanted to do this whole video. I love the Hunger Games. It's one of my first series I ever fell in love with. My first ever book series I fell in love with was Harry Potter when I was 11. Then it morphed into Divergent / the Hunger Games. You get the gist. It was very big when like this kind of made dystopian a thing for young adult books, and I still think they're really worth the read as an adult. Even if you've seen the movies and you're like, I've already seen it, I don't need to read it. Look, when you watch a movie, you're getting a snippet of the book, so I always recommend reading it even if you've seen the movie because you're going to learn things that you never thought about or seen in the movies. Thing is just released, and that is Haymitch's story, so we're going back in time, which I think is great. I don't want to mess up the future, leave it alone, but the Hunger Games is great. If you haven't read it, these are the new paperback. I was like, you know what, I've had the old ones for a while. Let me get the new paperback. I'm sure you know the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is a dystopian world where you have different districts, and pretty much every year they have the reaping, and a girl and a boy get chosen from each district to participate in the Hunger Games, and it's pretty much an all-out battle till you die with children. It's just, it's horrible. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, is it happy and sunshine? No, it's freaking bleak, but it's good. It is a good, solid series that I always recommend, even if you are an adult. Highly recommend it. Love it. So excited to read Haymitch's story, but also really nervous, and it's probably going to depress me, but you know, we're moving on. Speaking of fantasy, a series I will always shout its praises from the rooftops is An Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. This is still one of my favorite YA fantasies. This has 4 books in it. I'm just showing you the first one. And I love the arc of the characters. There's so many different characters. The arc of the story. It is just a beautiful story. So this is set in kind of Roman times. It's under the Martial Empire, and we follow a slew of characters. We follow Lila, who was a rebellion. She does not go in line with the Martial Empire, and her parents were killed, and she's trying to exact vengeance upon that. And then we have Elias, who is like the son of the Martial kind of ruler, where she's very, very gruff. She's really intense. She's horrible. Then we follow Helene, who is Elias's best friend, who's kind of in love with Elias. She's always been exactly what the Martial Empire wants. And you just have all these characters. You meet them in the first book and you sort of start having certain kind of feelings for them, but by the 4th book it'll be completely different because they just all are rooting for different things. It's just an amazing, fantastical book. It does have romance in it. It does have some of my favorite characters. I love Helene. She's like one of the lesser main characters, but I Her progress in this series is just astonishing. And by the end of this series, she will have you weeping, like weeping. She has actual consequences with wars, unlike some other authors where people die and then they're like, oh, we're brought back. Everything's totally cool. I'm looking at you, Sarah J. Maas. I'll say it again. There are actual consequences in this chick. Like she will freaking rip your heart up into a million pieces. But man, they are beautiful, stunning. Highly recommend it. Like the fantasy kind of kick. We have Arc of the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. This is a fantasy or more dystopian, kind of both, I guess you could say. I love this one. So this one is a world where everything has been pretty much good. Like we have even conquered death. Like we are good. But in order to keep the human population like going okay and like not having it overpopulated constantly, we have these people that are trained as scythes, and each one has a different method. So in this book, we follow certain characters, Citra and Rowan, who've been chosen to be apprentices, and they learned under a scythe and things like that. And you get to see how there are some scythes that really take their power and they use it for like good, and they do the right things. They really think about who is gonna not make it and things like that. Because in this world, you can also be like 100 and be like, I can age down if I have enough money. Like that's the kind of thing we're living in now. But these scythes really, some scythes really use their power for good, and some scythes are just straight up serial killers. I'm not gonna be straight up with you. They're mass murderers. They are horrible, and it really goes in the detail of like, it really makes this series in particular really makes you think about choices and actions and consequences of people, and just whew, it's intense, but it is amazing. Highly recommend. I'm sure if you're an adult reader, you've heard of Neil Shusterman because he has written adult books, but this is like the only thing I've read by him, but I still love it and would always recommend it. Now, in case you want some sci-fi, I only have one because I'm not the biggest sci-fi, but I do enjoy some, and that is the Illuminae Files. This is the second book I'm holding up, Gemina. I don't know where my first book is. Oh, you know what? I do know where. I've lent it out to one of my friend's daughters. So that's where it's at. That makes sense. Anyway, so this book is three books. We have Illuminae, Gemini, and I forget the Obsidio, I want to say. This book is great on audio too, in case you want one that you don't really want to pay attention to because she a thick one. The audiobook is great. It is mixed media, and basically the whole plot of this book is we have two different ships, kind of people living on it, and we follow two different people living on different ships, and pretty much AI takes over, like the AI artificial intelligence of the ship, and it gets freaking wonky and crazy, and the more you read it, you're like, is this real? And it's a good one. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend listening to it and also reading it at the same time. It is big, but it's mostly, like, as you can see, just kind of sometimes schematic, sometimes drawing, sometimes like scripts, sometimes audio files. It is just a really immersive sci-fi book that I love. I love this series. Moving in to some contemporary. That was, oh man, I loved some YA contemporary, and I still kind of do, but when I read them now, when like 16-year-olds are lamenting about the end of the world because they lost their book, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, there's a lot more bigger problems. I can't, you know, when they're that age, it's totally understandable to feel like that. I, as a 36-year-old, can't equate to that, so that's why. Anyway, I do have some favorites. I have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I love this book. This book recently got a sequel that I did not think needed to be written at all. In fact, I did not like it. Fall character, I forget her name because, again, a lot of these books I'm mentioning today I lent out to my friend's daughter. Like, she wanted some recommendations. I'm like, here you go. Here's some of my favorites. But basically, she loves rom-coms. And as myself, a lover of rom-coms, I appreciated that so much. In fact, each chapter had a quote from a different rom-com. Some of my favorites, like 10 Things I Hate About You, When Harry Met Sally, you get the gist. She is just always pictured falling in love, and basically this boy moves back that she had a crush on years ago, and she's like, I'm gonna woo him. I will. And so she confides that into her neighbor, kind of arch nemesis, Wes. And he's like, fine, I'll help you get the boy, and blah, blah, blah. You can guess where it's going. Either way, it's cute. It's adorable. I ate it up like freaking cotton candy. Couldn't get enough of it. Loved it. You know, I say with this one, read the first one, don't bother with the second one. I know it's controversial, but there, I said it. Next up, I have one that I actually just read very, very recently. That is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This one is kind of bordering on new adult. So you have young adult, which I think are about characters under the age of 18, and then you have new adult, which I think is like the college years, if you will. Then you have adult. This one is kind of in the middle between young adult and adult. So this book follows a character named Mallory Greenleaf, and she is 18 in this book, and she loved chess. She was really, really good at chess, but basically her dad left and she kind of quit chess. And now her family's really grappling financially, and she gets an opportunity to be a fellow at this chess thing. And so she actually has to play chess again to keep her family afloat. So she starts falling in love with it. And so have this guy that she beats in chess, Nolan Sawyer, who's like the best chess player in the world, and he's only like 20. So there's like a romance, also animosity happening. I thoroughly love this. I'd say for this one, if you love The Queen's Gambit, which was the Netflix show, which I devoured, I would highly recommend this one. You learn more about chess, which I'm always interested in. Like, I don't know how to play chess, but I want to learn how. Man, I'd say also Ali Hazelwood is an adult romance author. She mostly writes adult romances. This, I think, is a great YA romance. I think you should still read it, even if you're just like, I only read adult romances. I still think this is well worth it. It just doesn't have the steamy times, but it's got the romance, it's got the cutesy, it's got the great writing, it's got chess. I think it was awesome. Moving on to a couple of really serious ones that I still recommend. Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, a beautiful, beautiful book, and my favorite book by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this book, we follow two different characters, Camino and Yahira, and they are sisters, and they don't know that each other one exist. So basically, Camina exists for the summers when her dad visits and stays and with her and her grandmother in the Dominican Republic. She loves it because that's the only time she gets to see him all year. And then Yahira lives in New York, and her father always has to go to work for the summer in a different place. You can see where this is going. But sadly, they figure out each other exists when their father dies tragically on a plane crash. And so they learn that they're sisters, that their dad had a life that they each knew nothing about, and they bond. And it's a beautiful book about sisterhood and just kind of family. And it's set halfway in the Dominican Republic and halfway in New York. And it says it's a novel in verse that brims, that's right, it's told in verse. I forgot about that. It's a novel in verse that brims with both grief and love. And it's beautiful. If you read Elizabeth Acevedo, if you haven't read her books, I highly, highly recommend checking this one out. Then the other kind of serious one is A Heart in the Body of the World by Deb Coletti. This one I think is just recommend reading for anybody. I really loved it that much. And please forgive me, I lent it out, so I don't know the main character's name. But our main character, she has been through a lot, and she is really struggling with some PTSD. And this is a hard one to say, because the book does not tell you exactly what she is struggling PTSD from, but I think it's important to know before you go into the book because it triggers. Basically, a school shooting happens at her school, and some of her friends were tragically killed, and she is really grieving that and doesn't know what to do. So she runs. She is a runner. She decides to run. I forget what state she lives in, but to run all the way to DC to like talk to Congress, talk to the government about this, because this is not acceptable. Her grandfather rents an RV, so she'll run for the whole day, then she'll come in, eat dinner, you know, all that stuff, sleep, and then it's kind of like the Forrest Gump type of thing. But man, it is a beautiful, heart-wrenching book about grief and PTSD that I think everyone can benefit from reading. It is a YA book that just like does not feel YA at all. It really talks on really heavy and important topics, and I would always, always recommend it. And we have a classic YA series that was even popular before I joined BookTube, and I read it before I joined BookTube, which is very odd for me, but that is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashears. I read this so long ago, and I still love it. I still love the movies. I still don't know why they haven't made a movie of the adult version. That baffles me, but either way, this is about 4 friends, and they are all kind of being split up for the summer, so they decide to make sure they keep in touch. And so one day they're just shopping, and they all try on this pair of jeans, and they all fit them perfectly, which makes no sense because we have a really tall skinny girl and we have a really short curvy girl, and you know what I'm saying, like it doesn't make any sense, but it's like the perfect, it's like the traveling pants. So basically they send each other the pants all throughout the summer with letters, and they'll put patches on the pants. It's just really adorable. Each book represents each different summer, and then we have an adult one when they're grown up, and I love it. You will find one character you connect to and that you love and adore. For me, that's always been Lena, who was played by Alexis Blundell, which I thought was sheer perfection. I just love that series and will always talk about it, as well as the Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. This is also made into a TV series that I do really enjoy. I really look forward to it. I know the third one's coming out later this summer, but it is a beautiful book series that kind of has a love triangle. So we follow Belly, who has a crush on one of the brothers, and maybe the other brother likes her, but she doesn't know exactly what she's gonna do. Each book represents the summer, and it's just a beautiful book series. Like, ugh, adore it. So there you have all of the YA books that I really love and recommend, even if you're an adult reader. I think if you just want a good time with any of these, I think any of these would be great. Even, like I said, if you read primarily adult, primarily middle grade, primarily young adult, you get the gist. I've said this 50,000 times, but I would love to know what are some of your favorite all-time YA books that you will always recommend forever and ever, no matter what genre you read currently. I would love to know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.